Howdy folks, Techn Moto here with another how-to video. Today I'm going to replace the rear brake pads, rear brake rotors, and hardware kit on a 2009 Hyundai Elantra. As you can see, I jacked up the vehicle, put a jack stand underneath the vehicle for safety, and the wheel has been removed. So what you have here is the brake rotor, brake caliper bracket. We're going to press the piston in the caliper back into the caliper so we have some play to get this off. So to do that, I simply take a screwdriver, place it between the pad and the caliper, and we just push the caliper, all right, towards us, which in turn pushes the piston into the caliper. So now we can check to see if that caliper is moving okay on the slides. It's working pretty fine. All right, so we're going to take this off. 2 wrenches, 14 millimeter. Now if it's too tight and you can't break it loose, use 2 wrenches as leverage, and that should make it easier to get off. Just going to loosen that for now. We're going to come down to the bottom caliper bolt. I'm going to loosen that one also. Now we can take these off. Take them off, set them aside. Caliper should come right off of there with no issues. We're going to take the caliper, we're going to set it aside. I'm hanging it right off the exhaust so it doesn't hang off the hose, all right? Don't let it hang off the hose. Now we're going to take off the brake pads. They're sitting right here, if we can. You see, these pads are not in bad shape. They're pretty thick. I don't even think they're that old. But since I am doing this rotor because it's in bad shape, I am going to replace everything. And if you guys watch my videos, you know I don't mess around with brakes and safety equipment on cars. And this one is actually stuck in there. Yeah, see that? That was one of the big problems I was having. There's so much rust buildup on this that it was stuck in place. To get this bracket off, the brake caliper bracket, this has to come off. That's just a nut and a bolt that goes through here, so you can get access to the bolt for the brake caliper. 17 millimeter on both sides. I already sprayed it down with penetrating fluid about a week ago, so it has time to work. We'll see if I can just get that out of there. It should come off easy. We'll see. Yeah, right. All right. Nut is off. Now a hammer with a flat punch. Doesn't take a big hammer for this, and you can pop that bolt right out of there. All right, so there's the bolt. This piece should just come right up or down, one or the other. Let's just tap it. Now it's out of the way. We have access to the bolt for the brake caliper bracket. Okay, got the bottom one out. Just gonna loosen it, leave it in place for now to hold this in place, and try to get this top one loose. And that top one is tight, real tight. All right, this is not gonna budge. Try a 1/2-inch breaker bar. There's just no room in here. Do this. I'll get in here with some kind of leverage. It's going. So I had to use a 1/2-inch breaker bar with a 14 millimeter socket to get this top bolt off. You gotta remember, this vehicle, it's been sitting for 5 years. and it's just rusted out. A lot of the brake components, you know, from sitting for so long, I just totally rusted to crap. That's why we have to do the brakes on this, because when you're driving this vehicle, it feels like it's going to knock your teeth right out of your mouth, because the rotors and everything's just so bad. Other than that, these Hyundai Elantras, they're a good little vehicle as far as maintenance goes and stuff. The only thing you have to keep up with is the timing belt. You do have to change those when the manual calls for it, because they will break if you don't. And then you'll run into problems with the engine. Good on gas too. It's a dependable vehicle. That's all that matters really in my book. So you get those two bolts, one here, out from the bracket, and then everything comes right off. Now you're left with these two screws on the rotor. You could try a Phillips screw driver to take this off, and if you're lucky like I am here, it'll come right off. If not, you're going to need something like this. It's called an impact screwdriver. Alright, so this one ain't going to come off. Oh, it came off. If it didn't come off, you just hit it with the impact screwdriver and it comes right off. So what it does is when it hits it, it pushes it on the screw and turns it at the same time. We're going to have to hit this off, because chances are it's completely welded itself to the hub with rust. So we're going to hit it here on the hub without hitting the lugs. If you damage these, you're going to have to replace them. You don't want to do that. So you hit it and it should pop off, and then it should come right out, even though the brake shoes are in the back. There's not a big groove on this here, so, which I'm surprised. And you can see how bad that rotor is. See the rust? It's just flaking off. The metal's just flaking off. The outside is even worse. Look at that. It's just flaking right off from all the rust. That, with the brake pad being stuck in there because it was rusted in place, is giving you a hell of a vibration going down the road. I bought this vehicle knowing it was sitting for 5 years. It was from a family member, and when I took it for a ride, I knew it's going to need brake work. So this is not something I didn't know about. And to clean this up, because it is brakes, you don't need brake clean or any fancy shit like that. Excuse me for my language. What you do need is a little bit of soapy water. Spray it all down, and it'll take that brake dust right off of there. This is just laundry detergent. Now this is half and half laundry, half water. It's a half mix. And we just spray it on there, and that'll get all the brake dust and everything cleaned up, for real. Let it sit for a few seconds. We'll get our hose and we'll wash it down. And there you go, it's all nice and clean. Now you want to inspect your brake shoes, your pocket brake shoes, make sure they're good. Everything here in here looks good. For the brand new brake rotor, you should take some brake clean and just clean the surfaces up. Get some of that oil they put on here as a protectant off of there. Now, line these up. Okay. Put the screws back into the rotor. And then your cover, your rubber cover from the other rotor. There we go. Now you take your impact screwdriver, run these down. Now you can put a little bit of oil on these, just to keep them from rusting up. Run that all the way down, and then tighten them. And your rotor's installed. Now we got to go to the bench and clean up that caliper bracket. I want to pull these out. These are the caliper slides, and inspect them. Make sure they slide nicely. And they don't look bad at all. So what I'm going to do, take a little bit of brake and caliper grease and just hit these up with a little bit of fresh grease. Get it in there, work them, and get that back on. Doesn't take a whole lot of grease, so don't put too much. Okay. Now in here, there's a little bit of rust buildup where the hardware kit goes. We're going to clean this up. Steel wire brush should make easy work of this. And the other side. If you have big chunks of rust in there, you can use a screwdriver to pop those out. Very important that you clean this really good, because once you put the hardware kit on here, if there's any rust buildup, it's going to put extra pressure on the brake pads and hold them in place, causing you issues. What you want is with the hardware kit on here, the brake pads should still move a little bit, you know what I mean? I am not going crazy cleaning this whole bracket, just cleaning up the area for the hardware. All right, and that looks good. I'm going to put some penetrating fluid on these. Not much, just a little bit. This can be tricky to get started by hand. All right, that one's in. Put the bottom one in. Make sure these are going in properly. You don't want to cross thread these. Then you got a big problem on your hands. You just take your socket and you snug these up. Snug them up good and tight. Take your rotor, make sure it spins okay. It ain't hitting anything, like the bracket or anything like that. We are back. I was waiting on the hardware kit to come in, so it's the next day. Kind of forgot to record this, but your control arm, you just get it in there using a pry bar. Now, the bolt came out from this side. When you put it back in to make it easier, put the bolt in from here. Right, so the bolt's going to go in from here, and the nut's going to go on the back side. Makes it much easier to put in. All right, so I put a little bit of grease on the bracket where the hardware kit's going to sit on. Hopefully that'll just prevent, you know, any future rust. It's a very, very thin coat. So you get your new hardware kit, and there's really not much to say about this. It should just pop right into that caliper bracket. Just like that. And the top section, they're the same. I'll take some braking caliper grease and I put just a smidge where the brake pads tend to slide. Just a smidge. Again, we don't want to overdo it with the grease, because what happens with grease is it'll attract dirt, grime, and all kinds of nasty stuff, and it'll actually be worse in the long run. So just a smidge. Now, I like to use what's called ceramic brake pads. They don't tend to squeak. They have good stopping power, and they seem to last a lot longer than most semi-metallic or metallic pads do. We put these on. I couldn't show you on the back, but on the front, I'll show you. Put it in at an angle like that. Then you just kind of like twist it in there. And there you go. Caliper goes on next. Two bolts. And you snug it up. These don't have to be super tight, just a good snug. And it's all set. This is very important, don't forget. Get in the vehicle, pump the brake pedal a few times. And what that's gonna do is gonna push that piston to the right position so you have brakes. And that's it, the brakes are done. Rotor, brake pads, hardware kit, all done. Put the tire on, put the lug nuts on, tighten it all back up to the proper specs. I do recommend that you torque the lug nuts down when you put the tire on. Other than that, hope this is helpful. Thank you for watching and being here on the Techn Moto channel. God bless you all, and may you have an awesome day. Bye-bye.